to restore the dead to life. And that brings up the question of zombies, the living dead. Her English cousin laughed. You've been reading too many horror stories and seeing those supernatural movies on television. Life isn't like that. Maybe not here, Karen said dubiously. But what about Haiti? You can't be sure until you've lived there. And I'm going to, Sheila had said happily. This Christopher Leger is willing to hire me as social director for the Port-au-Prince Metropole, and I'm going to take the job. Think of all the rich, exciting people I'll meet. Karen had sighed. It will be fine if you can remain in the hotel and mingle with the tourists and the staff people, but if you're exposed to the native quarters, I'm afraid you'll be appalled by the poverty and squalor there. There's some of that in every country, Sheila pointed out. There's more of it in the Caribbean, and especially in Haiti, was Karen's warning. The blonde English girl had sighed. I know it won't be perfect, and I'll miss the fun of living here with you. I do like New York with all its faults, though a person isn't always safe on the streets here. But I feel it's time for a change in my life. I must move on. Karen smiled at her sympathetically. You've gotten the urge to travel again, just as you did when you first left home in England. Yes, the other girl admitted, and I've never regretted coming to the United States, though it is much different from England. Now I'd like to try somewhere else. I suppose there's no talking you out of it, Karen had said. So I'll just have to wish you luck. When are you leaving? In about 3 weeks, the lovely English girl replied. This Christopher Leger claims he'll need me by then, and that will give me time to give proper notice to my present employers. What do you know about this man? He's from the United States. He grew up in New Orleans and learned the hotel business there. He moved around in the Caribbean and finally wound up in Haiti. He sounds very nice. I hope he's reliable, since it's chiefly on his word you are taking the job. I'm sure he must be. He's the manager of the hotel, and he wouldn't have that responsibility if he weren't reliable. The owners must have checked on him thoroughly. I'd hope so, Karen had said with doubt still in her voice. Within 3 weeks, Sheila had given up her job in New York and taken a plane to Haiti. The first reports Karen had from her were glowing. While Sheila admitted to the poverty seen on all sides in Haiti, she was glowing in her description of the luxury tourist hotel. She described the lush tropical vegetation of its gardens and the fine swimming pool in which she spent some time every day. She also told of the international clientele of the hotel and how she enjoyed meeting them. Karen began to feel that she'd been unduly pessimistic about the prospects for her pretty cousin on the troubled island. Sheila wrote that Christopher Leger was a pleasant middle-aged man with a charming manner. He was an understanding employer, and she spent some of her free time with him. He had introduced her to some of the fine island people. According to Sheila, there were a number of large sugar plantations of the island owned by elite families of French descent, with occasionally some Creole blood mixed in. As the months rolled by, Sheila's letters became less frequent, but they were always enthusiastic about her new island life. She described the gambling casinos and mentioned a young man named Henri Bagnold, whom she had dated a good deal. He was one of the wealthy plantation owners she'd met through Christopher Leger. It seemed to Karen that her cousin was making her way in the social life of the island, and she was glad for this. Then there was a long silence, followed suddenly by an ecstatic telegram informing Karen that Sheila had married Henri Bagnold and was deliriously happy. This was followed by a letter in which Sheila told of living with Henri and his family at their plantation just outside Port-au-Prince. The blonde girl insisted that she had never been happier